In this session, we're going to look at how to close up holes in surfaces. Now, I have a drawing open on screen. It's called Surface STH25 Refinement Datum. This is my Refinement Datum surface drawing. Same as before, here on the Prospector tab, I started out by coming down to Data Shortcuts. I right-clicked and I chose Set Working Folder, and the working folder I selected this time was Civil 3D Projects 4. I then went into the project called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I went into the Design folder and then into the Surfaces folder to find this drawing. Before we get started, let's split our screen. I'll do that by opening this leftmost in-canvas menu. I'll go to Viewport Configuration List and I'll choose 2 Vertical. I will then click to put the focus on this view on the right. I'll zoom in and then I'll use the rightmost in-canvas menu to change the visual style to shaded. That'll make it easier to see the holes in the surface. I'll click back in the left view here and I'll zoom in. And you know what? We're going to start with this hole in the southwest quadrant. Let me focus on that same area in both views. Let's do one more thing. I'd like to edit the surface style just so that the hole shows up a little bit better here in this wireframe view. I'll do that by selecting the surface. I'll right click, I'll go to Edit Surface Style, and here on the Display tab I'm going to change the border property. I'm just going to force this to be magenta. Now, I would never endorse changing an office style like this. I'm only doing this for visual purposes. So that makes it a little bit easier to see the hole. Now, if you have a small hole, you can take and close these up in many cases by simply adding a triangulation point and then removing it. Let's take a look. I'm going to start by selecting the surface. I'll open the Edit Surface menu and I'll choose Add Point. This allows me to add a custom triangulation point. The point location, I'm going to shift right click and I'll choose Midpoint from the Object Snap menu, and I'll just choose the midpoint of one of these edges. You can see that Civil 3D extracts the elevation from that location, so I'm not changing the surface at all. Let me press Enter, and you can see it's now triangulating to that location and it closed up the hole. Let's press Escape to get out of the command. At this point, I would like to delete this triangulation point. It's not necessary. In order to do that, I need to make one more quick change to the style. We cannot remove a triangulation point unless the points are visible. So let me select the surface. I'm going to right click and go to Edit Surface Style. And then here on the Display tab, I'm going to turn the points component on. And for right now, let's just make those green so they show up on screen. There's the point. Let's select the surface. I'll open the Edit Surface menu and I'll choose Delete Point. We'll take this one out. I'll press Enter. Perfect. Let me hit Escape. That looks really good. We could open the Edit Surface menu and maybe do maybe an add line. We could take and maybe add a line there, clean up the triangulation a little bit. You know what? As I zoom in, there's a point right here that I really don't think that we need. Let's take that one out as well. I'll open the Edit Surface menu again. I'll choose Delete Point and we'll remove this one. Perfect. There we go. That gives me much nicer triangulation, and it's as though the hole was never there. Let's change the surface style again. We'll turn the points back off. I'm going to select the surface. I'll right click and choose Edit Surface Style. And then just to put things back the way they were, we'll change the points property here back to by layer, and I'll turn that component off and I'll click OK. So that's how we can close up a small hole, just by adding and removing a new triangulation point. Now let's take a look at a larger hole like this one. This one was created by the addition of my grading object and surface. I then pasted that into my refinement surface, and now I've got this big gap in here. If you have a large hole in your surface, you can close it up by simply tracing the edge and then adding that to your surface as a show boundary. Let's try that. Fortunately, tracing this hole is extremely easy because I've got the boundary edge right there. I'm going to select the surface, and then from the contextual ribbon, I'll choose Extract Objects. This allows me to extract components from my surface. Now, I don't want to extract any triangles. I do want to extract a border, but not all of them. Let me open this and I'll choose Select from Drawing, and I'll click the green box. I will then select the boundary and press Enter. I'll press OK. I'll press Escape a couple times, and you can see that it traced the hole there using a 3D polyline. Now let's come over to Prospector. I'll open the Surfaces category. Let's right click on the refinement surface. I apologize. Let's expand the refinement surface. I'll open up definition, and I'm going to add this as a boundary. I'll right click on boundaries and choose add. Name, I'm going to call it Northwest Quad Curb Terrace. Type of boundary, it's a show boundary. Let me click OK. I'll select that edge and I'll press enter. And you can see it's now triangulating through that hole. Now we have the choice of going through and tweaking the triangulation, whether we do it via add line or swap edge. I'm going to clean up this triangulation using a feature line. I'm going to take this break line edge coming through here and I'll tie it to this break line edge here. I'm going to open the feature line menu and I'll choose create feature line. Site Northwest Quad, that's perfect. I'm going to call this feature line Northwest Quad break line. We'll go with the standard style, that's fine. Let me click OK, and I'm going to start my break line right here. I'll press enter to accept the elevation, and then I'm going to tap the letter A for arc, and I'll press enter. Now I can click the second point of my arc. Now my running object snap's getting in the way. I could come down and turn that off, or if I hold down the F3 key, it will disable running object snaps momentarily, allowing me to pick a point. There we go. Then I'll come over here and I'll draw the arc to the point right there. I'll press enter to accept the elevation, and then I'll press escape when I'm finished. Now before I add this as a break line, I would like to put some little triangulation points along this. I'll do that by selecting the feature line, and inside the edit elevation panel, you can see that's turned on because the toggle's blue. I'll come down here to insert elevation point. I'll press I for increment, enter, and then distance between points, let's say 3 feet. Enter, and then I'll press escape. Each one of these points along this feature line is going to be used as a triangulation point. I'll press escape when I'm finished. We'll come back over to Prospector. I'll right click on break lines and I'll choose add. Description, I'll just call this Northwest Quad break line. It's a standard break line because it's in 3D. The mid-ordinate distance isn't going to come into play. Those points are so close together it's not going to matter. Let me click OK. I'll select this and I'll press enter. There we go. That looks pretty good. Let me click in this view. We can see this in the shaded view. We'll zoom in. Now I have to admit I didn't care for the triangulation here so much, but you can see here in the shaded view it's really not that bad. Really not that bad. We could maybe tweak that a little bit. We'll leave that for another day. Let me come down here. This I do want to correct. I do have a problem there on the end of my curb terrace. Let's come back over here. We'll zoom in. Based on what we know now, we can correct this using swap edge. Let me choose my surface. I'll go to edit surface and I'll choose swap edge. Let's flip this line. There we go, looking better. Let's flip this one. Perfect. Let me click in this view and zoom in. Looks like we got to flip one more edge. Let me get in here and I'll flip this one. Outstanding. That's exactly what I want. Let me hit escape to get out of the command, and then I'm going to open the in-canvas menu here on the view on the right, and I'll choose maximize viewport to maximize that viewport on screen. I'll zoom this out, we'll center it on screen and take a final look at our refined surface.